In the morning, everyone. Today we're going to look at different concepts and functionality in Client Track and relate that to the coordinated entry self-assessment. And we're going to show what possibilities there are for coordinated entry implementation. This isn't to dictate or to box you into anything that should be in your system or what will be in your system, just showing what could be and what one possibility might be. Out of the self-assessment, we're going to be covering just a few of those sections. So the assessment, determining what protective and risk factors, vulnerability and needs there are for a client, prioritization, so who will have access to limited resources first, and referral, sending clients to those resources. So typically with coordinated entry, there are specific lists, assessments, other pieces of functionality that makes it a little bit easier to work with when it's separate. So what we would use maybe is a different work group. So here I have a coordinated entry specific work group and set up specifically for these requirements. So if we're getting into the assessment, we can have different levels of assessment. Maybe we're using a phased approach. So the first things we're asking are really about immediate housing need. Maybe we're getting into something that's much more in depth. Maybe it's everyone has the exact same assessment in all cases, regardless of what's happening. Maybe you have 3 or 4 different assessments based off of what track we're looking at. So maybe if we know this is more of a diversion piece, we're sending them one way down one route. Maybe if we know if it's permanent supportive housing, we go a different assessment route. So we can have standalone assessments where it's just one-off, just linked to the client record. If it's something that's more intensive, or maybe something that we're going to be doing over time, maybe we want to throw that into a workflow. So here, if we're adding a new client, so John Andrews, he says, we ask him his age, he says he's 27. We're not really interested in not asking him about any type of demographics. We're more thinking about eligibility. So maybe we just need to know gender for maybe what agency or what shelter he might be eligible for. Maybe we're asking about vet status. Are there any children or anyone else that has to stay with John tonight? We can answer that here. So if maybe we're not doing an initial assessment, maybe we're looking more at a longer term engagement. So like a PSH navigator, so we know that they're assessing them the first time, and then as the results of the first assessment come into place or come apparent, what are they going to do? There's maybe some next phases to it, or maybe a housing navigator would be a better way of thinking about it. So that John came in last night. In the first steps, we just want to make sure that is this person chronically homeless or not? So where do they stay? These should be very familiar questions. If there are additional assessments that we want to ask at the very beginning, we can throw them in here. Maybe it's based off of what we said. We just know that we need to make a housing reservation. There's an immediate housing need. We can see different facilities that have things available. If there's eligibility criteria, we can enter that here. So this is just a basic example of this facility is for adults only. We can see if there's space available. So here we can make a referral to say we're sending this person to you. Maybe we get to the point where we're actually reserving a bed, and we're making one-day reservations. So if they come tonight, they have some type of space available. So we're finished, and that's again a workflow option that could tie in different pieces of functionality. What you saw was just a basic assessment and some type of referral or reservation. For standalone assessments, maybe we're using the BI SPDAT, and that's really all we need. We don't need anything else. And we're just going to do a very quick one here. So we have this individual assessment, standalone assessments that's there. So again, for the assessment piece, if we're doing a very intensive one or maybe a multi-step one, maybe we're throwing it into a workflow to keep things organized because there's a project enrollment. You can link things at different points of time, makes it a little bit easier. And again, all this depends on your requirements. So you have the option of doing standalone assessments or throwing them into a workflow. That's the key takeaway from here. The next part, prioritization. So you've been assessing your clients, you've been getting information. How can we know who should be getting resources first? Well, in this use case, there's a PSH Navigator project where people were going in, they're entering them to keep track of when they first were seen, as well as gain some basic information about them. Maybe they did some follow-up assessments like the VI SPDAT. Now, when they're going through, maybe they're doing case conferencing, maybe they're doing, some other method, every other week, or as soon as a voucher comes up or a bed comes up, they look to see who's next. Well, here we can see what we would consider a wait list, or really a by name list. It's essentially a search form. We said we want to see these pieces of information and we want it sorted by this criteria. So we wanted to see these different columns, and we wanted to see at the top of the list the highest VI SPDAT score. Maybe later we want to add additional criteria of, is this person next should be chronic homeless. It's really whatever we want it to be. For this instance, this use case, we used a search form because we can do stuff from a search form. So maybe we want to see which projects they're eligible for. So we can see here that they're eligible for this facility. Maybe we just have basic project eligibility. We don't know who, but we just need to know what avenue to send us down. We can launch another workflow. Maybe we just want to go see more information about the client to double check. For other use cases of a by name list, maybe we need to see everyone. Everyone on a list. It doesn't really matter who's in a project. If it's something like that, maybe we're looking more at a report. If it's just you need to see a ranked list. If you want to have a little bit more functionality, maybe you have a very narrow search because you're doing weekly case conferences, and you only ever need to see the first 10 because you would never get past the first 10. So maybe you use a search form for that use case. So if we want to send people to different projects, let me send you to the person we just created here, John Andrews. We can see that they started this PSH navigation project last night. We can go in and add any assessments if we need to. So if we're doing different assessments over time, or as we gain different information, maybe we learn that this person's an eligible vet, and there's that opens up a whole new range of possibilities. Maybe we're looking to solve a different type of need. Maybe the primary need for John is healthcare. Lots of issues that are coming up, so we can log that today I'm giving them a primary healthcare referral. I see the list of providers who offer this service, and I just simply log the referral. If this provider needs an email sent to them, I can use a plugin to launch that. Or if there's some type of voucher that's needed, we can use a plugin here to show that there's vouchers authorized and get a little more information. If we're looking at just logging the referral, so maybe the provider that we're referring to, it's most important. Really, all we need for our data tracking is the fact that I gave the referral, and if I walked the client over there, I can put the result in here. Or if we're looking at using in the application, using providers, we can go in, say I'm coming in on behalf of the Hope van. I'm seeing who's been referred. I can go in here and actually edit that referral and say, yep, we saw it, and this person was a no-show. So those are the different pieces of functionality and the different concepts. It was a very brief overview. And just to recap, so when we're looking at assessments, we can look at it from the standpoint of maybe a workflow if there's something complex or something that you're going to have to go back to over time for comparison. You can also do standalone assessments. So really, is it just the most recent that's important? It's only one. It's going to be all-encompassing because everyone, no matter what the situation, is going to have this one assessment. When it comes to prioritization, again, we have options depending on what the requirements are. So maybe we use a search form that has a little more functionality to go back and forth to the different clients and sort them. A by name list and prioritization list is really just you want to see certain pieces of information and sorted under certain criteria. Or if it's a very, very large list, you don't really need to do much with it other than just have that ranked list. Maybe it's more of a report or some type of data explorer question. For referrals, we can look up different providers that provide different services. So maybe the referral is to specific projects or to specific programs. Maybe it's to, like we saw, different providers for different needs. So healthcare, some type of substance abuse treatment, whatever it could be. And there are options for in-app, acknowledgement, and work, or maybe it's just the fact that we're logging in that we're giving this referral. So that's all we have for today. Thank you for your attention. Looking forward to the next one.